Good evening, everyone. Go. Live?
Live in person.
So, welcome everyone to the Tanya class. We're studying chapter 28, which ends off a discussion that we've been in the last two chapters from 26. We're talking about how to handle one of the biggest obstacles to serving God, which should be done with joy, with simcha. So we're discussing different forms of depression. One of the best tools of the Yetzer Hara to get us away from what we should be doing is getting us depressed. So we discussed in chapter 26 depression over physical matters, and we said that God doesn't do anything bad. Whatever Hashem does is good, or is for the good. So it's not a reason to be down. We spoke about depression that comes due to a person feeling his shortcomings in the spiritual life. And we spoke about a form of the first one, which is that the person looks at where he failed, which is something that we should do. But we have to realize that if this is coming when we're in the middle of eating, sleeping, working, which are things that are not godly, it's Yetzer Hara time. And the Yetzer Hara suddenly starts making you think about your spirituality. How much more so this is when you're actually doing a mitzvah. So the Yetzer Hara doesn't want you to stop eating so you could start doing tshuva. He has a trick over here. He's a very professional trickster. The trick is to get you depressed. So you decide when to do that soul searching, and you decide when to start or when to stop. It's like a treatment. So certain treatments, they're necessary, but they have to be given in with the right dosage. So Miri's bitterness, which is different than depression and atzvus, is something which should be practiced, but Yetzer Hara should not have the keys to the bitterness chamber.
What's atzvus?
Atzvus is depression, sadness. The godly soul should decide when to do that in the right time. Then we discussed a third type of depression, which also stems from spiritual causes. Not so much about the fact that I failed in the past, but the fact that I'm struggling. Yetzer Hara tries to create a certain image in our mind, a false impression of reality that if you were really good, you wouldn't want to do bad, which is a mistake, because it's okay that we want these things. That's how we are. We're not. That's how Hashem created us. What's not okay is to give in. The fact that you're in a fight is not your fault.
It's almost like the snake saying that you can't touch the tree even.
Similar.
Because then it's gonna psych you out somehow that but you're alive.
Yeah, that's the point.
It's a trick.
Don't let the Yetzer Hara start telling you what God wants. He's not the source for that. So the Yetzer Hara tries to create this image in our mind that if you were good, you wouldn't want these bad things. You wouldn't have a struggle. And the answer to that, which we learned in chapter 27, is what do you mean? There's one of the mitzvahs in the Torah. We say it every day in the Shema. Do not go astray after your heart and after your eyes. Who's going astray? If the mitzvah is given only to tzaddikim, then they're not going astray after the mind and their heart. It must be talking about the beinonim, the regular people, that they have a struggle. So you should actually be happy. You have an opportunity to do the great mitzvah of overcoming temptations. And we said this is the idea of we're going to learn this week's parsha of Asidi Matam Yitzchak asked for delicacies. There's two forms of delicacies, two things that cause Hashem pleasure. Is the service of tzaddikim, which is like sweet and pleasant way of serving God without struggles, just growing and accomplishing more and more. Then there is taking things that are not naturally pleasurable and pleasant, but you prepare them in the right way. You can even take the bitter and the spicy and make that into something delicious. And that's the concept of the service of the beinonim, which is overcoming challenges, overcoming struggles. And this was all if these thoughts of sadness due to spiritual shortcomings or a person's just not happy with the spiritual state of being, come when he's involved in his regular business. So there, the first thing you tell yourself is if the Yetzer Hara should not be stopping you from doing worldly things. That's what he wants. There was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, about Tanya, that he was, I believe his name was Rabbi Zesmer. He was a lumber merchant. Then they had a whole business of lumber. The way it would work, they would chop the trees and make them into, if raft is the right word, when you tie a bunch of logs together.
To go in the water.
Yeah,
right.
Raft.
Yeah, I think so.
And they would, that's how they would ship it. Down there's a few, big port cities. So that was his business. He was a rich man, and once he was at the marketplace in a wagon, and he put his foot down on the wagon, and he started to think some deep thoughts of Chassidus for hours. And people told him, now you're doing business. It's a great thing what you're doing, but he says, if during Shema, it's okay, it's acceptable to think about lumber, then it's fine to think about Shema in the middle of lumber.
But you're not supposed to think about lumber during the Shema, no?
You're not supposed to. But he says, why is it that when someone thinks about lumber and Shema, it's forgivable, but people are telling me off about thinking about Shema in the middle of the lumber. So the Yetzer Hara, if he's giving you thoughts of Shema in the middle of the lumber, why is he stopping you from thinking about worldly things? Obviously, because he's trying to use the spirituality to get you even further from Hashem. He has this...
Like interrupting your business.
Yeah.
Which you need to be doing.
You have to...
That's a point here, right?
No, that's one point. You're talking about Yetzer Hara should be happy that you're doing business. He tries to keep you away from learning and davening.
But the Yetzer Hara doesn't want you to
From
suffer
tshuva.
regardless. Doesn't matter. Doesn't the Yetzer Hara want you to suffer even business all the time? I don't think this is. When is the Yetzer Hara happy, so to speak? When it's interfering with a Benoni, a human person.
When he gets him to not be focused on the important things.
But even on business, because then he'll get more depressed if he loses his money in his business.
That's one thing.
So when would the Yetzer Hara be
No,
happy?
but Yetzer Hara is not. We sometimes think of Yetzer Hara as like an external force, and there is a certain aspect that Yetzer Hara is an external force, is an angel. It's trying to get us to sin and make us suffer. But let's start here. We're talking more the animal soul. He wants to enjoy. He wants to have a good time. Our animal soul. It could be there's a deeper meaning behind it all, which he wants you to enjoy now. And then, like we said, we studied last week that he has a few names. First he's the Yetzer Hara, then he's the Satan, and then he's the Malach HaMavet. First he convinces you to sin, then he prosecutes you, and then he executes the punishment.
The same being.
The same angel who has a bunch of different faces.
But does he want the person to be losing money in business too? If he's going to start talking about
Not
holy
necessarily.
things while he's working?
All he wants is you to not do mitzvahs. For one person, it's by. I don't know if he has the power to take away your health, and that's Hashem's so to say department. His only power is to try to lure you away. Hashem gives him that mandate to try to get you out of the right thing. And for one person, he'll do it by making him focus on his troubles. Another person will make it by he'll take him away from Torah by making him focus on his successes. Look, you see, you're so successful without studying. He is very. He works very. He gives individual attention.
I don't understand what the thing is, but the Erguvia of getting things mixed up is one of his
Tricks.
tricks. The things getting mixed up in itself
That
is
is
in
true.
itself
They're confusing you.
things are just all, instead of having things set up in a very, very,
Focused.
focused way.
And designated way. Yeah, that's another one of the tricks, and that's why we have to study. We have to learn. It says, "Oivai techakmeni." It says in Tehillim, make me smart from my enemies. By studying the tactics of the Yitzhar, we know what to be aware of. Like any army, yeah, you always have the soldiers that fight, and you have those that the FBI, the CIA, those that collect the intelligence.
Strategic
Yeah,
force.
you have to know what the enemy is planning in order to be successful. So we have to study these things. We know when things are clear to us, all the tricks don't work. That's what the Alter was telling you over here. 1 second. Try to analyze. What are you doing now? You're doing business. It's when you're davening, it makes you think about the business, right? So why is he making you think about davening, that you're not davening good enough in the middle of business? What's his game? So you realize there must be something going on. There's a plan. The plan is, he doesn't want you to daven better. He just wants to make you depressed. And he knows when you're depressed, you just fall lower and lower and lower. So that's why you tell him, thank you. Thanks for the reminder. I'll put it in my calendar. Tonight, before I go to sleep, when I say Shema, I'm going to decide, and I'll do my tshuva, my soul searching. You have to always look at where things come from to know, what they're about. There's this little story. It's a bit of a humorous tale. It's more for Fabrengen, so we'll keep out the graphic descriptions. But there's a story about this bird that was flying in somewhere in the North Pole, and it got really cold, and it wasn't able to fly anymore. It slowly froze, and it fell down and started to freeze to death. Meanwhile, an animal comes, and a cow or a horse or something, and it does its droppings on the bird, and it's warm, and the bird started to defrost, and it started to feel better, so it started to sing. So then comes a wolf and hears the bird singing, so it took the bird and started to clean it up with some snow and made it all nice, and then it ate it up. So there's 3 lessons over here. There's not everyone that gives you something uncomfortable means to hurt you. Sometimes it's for your benefit. And not everyone who cleans you up means, not everyone who gets you dirty means to harm you. Not everyone who cleans you up
is your friend.
Wants to help you.
And what definitely is sure that when you're stuck in garbage, you shouldn't be singing. That's the. So anyway, the Yetzer Hara is starting cleaning you up. He's making you suddenly making you aware of your spiritual shortcomings. He doesn't mean any good. So that's how you realize, what's the Yetzer Hara again? If he wants me to think business, if he's making me think tshuva middle of business, there must be a trick over here. So I tell him, no thank you. But now, in chapter 28, we learn about a third category, or actually a fourth, which is when the Yetzer Hara starts throwing temptations while you're studying. Here, this is his. So he said, if you shouldn't be depressed that that you feel like doing sinful things in the middle of business, because you have the opportunity to do the mitzvah of not going astray after your heart and after your eyes. Great. So we understand what's happening over here. I'm out on Fifth Avenue or wherever I'm working. I'm trying to do my thing, my kosher business, the way a Jew should do business. And the Yetzer Hara is throwing all these thoughts into my mind of things that are not proper. So I know now there's no reason to be depressed, because it's just an opportunity to do the mitzvah of Leisasuru. But what happens if these thoughts are coming to me while I'm praying and studying?
You have to push it away the same way.
You have to push it away, but what does it say about myself? What is it showing me about me? It says, if I'm doing a mitzvah and the Yetzer Hara has power over me, it's not. Of course, I could do the mitzvah of not going astray. But why am I, when I'm focused on good things, it's not like I'm walking in the street. So it's one kind of klipas noga. It's not holy what I'm doing. It could be kosher, so I'm being tempted by something not kosher. But here I'm focused on something. I'm trying to pray. I'm trying to study, and all these thoughts are coming to me. That means, you would argue, something which you couldn't argue about if the thoughts come to you in the middle of business, in the middle of worldly matters. Here you're involved in spirituality, and these disturbing thoughts come your way. What does that mean? That means that something's wrong with me. So the Alter Rebbe says, first of all, before we get into anything, you should know that you have an opportunity, like Charlie said, you could reject these thoughts now too. Just push them away. Definitely don't be depressed over it, as he'll explain further on. But he gives first a warning. Don't be a fool. There's something that a person could do while he's praying and studying, and these bad thoughts come to him. These machshavas zaras, what you call, come his way. There's a course of action which is written in different books of Kabbalah and Hasidus, which is that if a person is studying and learning, is involved in spiritually themed concepts, and negative thoughts come to him, they're coming to him to be elevated. What does this mean? So the Alter says, it's not for you. That's for tzaddikim. There is such a concept, it's true, it's for tzaddikim. Like we mentioned before, that the animal soul and the godly soul are actually very are identical in their makeup. The direction is actually totally opposite, but the way they work, it's the same machine. The same, everything is exactly the same. So we have let's take the example, the midah of chesed. Okay, so you have the chesed of the godly soul, which is kindness to another Jew, love to Hashem, anything which is associated with giving and sharing in the good direction. And you have the counterpart of the opposite of chesed, the chesed of the animal soul, the chesed of klipa, which is the same thing. It's love, but it's love for things that are not good. Let's take fear, yira, vura. So fear of Hashem is a great thing, and the animal soul also has the attribute of fear, but the fear of the animal soul is towards things that you shouldn't be scared and concerned of, etc., etc. So when I'm involved in spirituality, I'm focused on getting close to Hashem, and suddenly I feel a chesed of klipa, a love towards something that I shouldn't love, or a fear of something that I shouldn't be fearing, it means that I have an opportunity now to elevate, to take, because everything at the end of the day is created from Hashem, everything is godly, everything has a godly spark. And even negativity has godliness in it, because godliness is the only way for something to exist, is to be connected to Hashem. So there's sparks of goodness in everything. And if I'm in the middle of studying and suddenly a negative thing comes to me out of nowhere, out of the blue, it's a sign that I have to elevate. It's coming to me to be elevated. Like you have different stories if you ever hear about souls which would come to tzaddikim to get elevation. Souls that were sinned, their sins were so great that they were never admitted even into Gehenna. It's the souls that roam around, the bukim, things like that. That's where it comes from. That's the concept. So these souls, they what's a dibuk, for example? A dibuk is when a soul enters someone else. Right? It's not supposed to be there. The reason why it enters, it's because it's seeking a tikkun, and it hopes that through entering this person, it could sort of manipulate a tikkun. Someone's going to promise that he's going to study for it or say kaddish. There's all these different stories. You read the bukim stories.
To elevate the dibuk.
Yeah. So sometimes negativity is drawn towards godliness in order to be elevated. So if negativity comes to me when I'm doing business, it's not coming to be elevated. It's coming to be rejected. But there's a certain way of thought which is actually correct in a certain extent, which is if I'm involved in something good, and then I have something bad comes to me, the negativity is being attracted to the positivity because it feels that it could be elevated now. Which means that let's say I feel in the middle of studying, I feel a love to forbidden love. So what I'm supposed to do now is elevate it, which means try to empty the love out of its negative form and use it for godliness. So let's take an example. We have that when Yaakov finally met Yosef after many years. So it says that the Torah says that Yosef hugged and kissed his father. It doesn't say that Yaakov hugged and kissed Yosef back. And the Medrash teaches us that Yaakov felt that he's going to have a great surge of love, seeing a son he didn't see for 22 years. You can imagine.
Oh, he knew it was him. He knew.
Yeah, no, he knew Yosef was alive already. Now he's coming to meet him.
Right.
The first chance to meet him, and Yaakov knew that he's going to feel this great love. So Yaakov, who, as much as he was a loving father, he was a servant of Hashem. That was his main. That was his real essence. So he said, I have to use this as an opportunity of once in a lifetime that I could love Hashem with such a great way. So when he met Yosef gives him a hug. Yaakov says, Shema Yisrael. He's using that human, so to speak, surge of love and diverting it towards love to Hashem.
Sublimating it, I think they say, bringing it to a higher level or something.
Yeah, he's taken, because generally to love Hashem that way, you have to be far from Hashem for 22 years and then come back. Bali Tshuva have that advantage. Yaakov didn't have that issue. He wasn't about Tshuva. Yaakov was a tzaddik. When could he feel that great yearning? He was only able to feel it on a physical way, from his relationship with Yosef, and he had a chance. So he said, I have to use this energy for Hashem. So a similar point. This is not something negative. Obviously, love to a child is fine. It's doesn't necessarily come from kedusha, but it's definitely not a sinful love.
But it was his favorite son too.
Yaakov, I'm sure, came from holiness. But there's another interesting story that the Rabbi Rashab, the fifth Chabad Rabbi, just had his birthday last week. So he had his son was a young boy, the previous Rebbe. He was sleeping in their apartment. He was studying with a friend of his, and the friend saw the Frierdiker Rebbe. He told his father, your son has a very beautiful face. So Rebbe Rashab felt great love, and he wanted to kiss him, but instead he took that love and he wrote a mimer. He wrote a discourse, and many years later he gave it to his son. He said, "This is the kiss that I was going to give you, but instead I invested it in this teaching, and now I'm giving you the kiss." So you have this concept that you could take a physical emotion, which is not at least by tzaddikim everything to do is holy, but just take the example, Yaakov seeing Yosef, the Rebbe Rashab wanted to kiss his son, which is natural. Any father feels love for his children, and using that emotion for godliness. So the concept could be extended further. That if in the middle of learning I have bad thoughts, that means that the godly spark in the negative thought, the negative emotion, the negative idea is being attracted to the godliness, so it feels it has a chance to be elevated. So it's written in Baal Shem Tov taught this, and other books, maybe even from the Rizal, that when the person is involved in something in godliness and he has negative thoughts, that it means that they're coming to you to be elevated.
Which one is it then? Are we saying don't be like the tzaddikim and don't buy that?
Wait. Okay. That's just explaining the concept.
Okay.
Says the Alter Rebbe, don't be a fool.
Oh.
By the way, this is one of the points of the Misnagdim. They like to attack the Hasidim. So this is like something that they would take. I mentioned way back in the beginning that the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe didn't want to print it originally. It was just copied, but since it was being forged, so this is a typical place where Misnagdim would forge. They would say that they say Hasidus says it's good to have bad thoughts.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, they'll leave it at that, and they cut out half a sentence here and a word over there, and they say, what it does say is that when a person is involved in godliness and he feels a bad thought, he could elevate it. So they would pull out a word and it would make it sound like it's okay to have bad thoughts when you should have bad thoughts when you study, because if you think about bad things when you study, you're elevating them. That's how they would forge these things, and then they would show it to rabbis and say, look what the Hasidim teach. That's how most of the rabbis of the Misnagdim, the big Talmidei Chachamim, some bad people. They told them lashon hara and they showed them these forged books, and that's how they used them. They got them into the fight. Those that were a little smarter, they conducted their own research. They didn't rely on what was being presented to them. So the Alter Rebbe tells us this concept is true. However, bear in mind that your positivity has to be strong enough to lift up the positivity which is in the negativity. And if you're not on that level, which means that so what's the cutoff point? Where do you know that it's coming from within yourself, the bad, or it's coming from an external source? When could you elevate it if you are pure and you're holy? And you are pure goodness, you're such pure goodness that negativity is attracted to you because you could elevate it. But if you're stuck in the jail,
So it's your tribe or
if the source of this negative thought is that you have negativity in you, you didn't get rid of it. So the reason why it's coming to you, it doesn't matter why it's coming to you, but the reality is you won't be able to lift it up. There's a rule that ein chavosh mater atzmai, which means a captive cannot release himself. Someone who's outside of the jail could release you. You can't pick yourself up by your head, by your hair. Only someone external could lift you up. So tzaddikim, this concept is true with tzaddikim. Tzaddikim are pure and they're holy and they have no negativity. And when a tzaddik suddenly experiences thoughts, that's negativity that belongs to one of his chassidim, people that are connected to him. And that negativity has in it positivity, it has sparks. And since you're connected to the tzaddik could help you, could elevate you. That's one of actually the differences between the Chabad way of serving Hashem and the rest of the Hasidim. Was there's a verse that says tzaddik v'manasai yichya. Tzaddik lives by his faith. So the other Hasidim, which emphasized greatly, Hasidus in general, let's say it like this, emphasizes greatly the importance of being connected to a tzaddik, to a Rebbe. But there's two approaches. One, the Chabad approach is that tzaddik directs you, he teaches you how to serve Hashem. And the general Hasidic approach was that the tzaddik gives you life, the tzaddik helps you out.
Intervenes.
He not only he directs you, he does part of the work for you. So here's one example that the tzaddik does the work for you. The tzaddik the tzaddik is pure, and you have a lot of negativity, and the tzaddik is going to clean you up. How's he going to clean you up? When tzaddik prays, and the tzaddik studies, he's going to have your bad thoughts come to him, and the tzaddik knows where they're coming from. And the tzaddik could say, okay, the tzaddik has the tools to do that surgery and open up that bad midah, and find the midah of it, the emotion. Let's say it's love, and say, okay, we have to separate. We have to take out it's love for something. So I could separate the love from what the love is for. The love is for something bad. I'm going to get rid of the bad, and I'm going to use the good in it to love Hashem. And when the tzaddik loves Hashem with that midah that he elevated, then he actually redeemed part of your negativity. I don't know if the Chabad Rebbes did this or not. In a sense they did it. There's an interesting story about the Mittler Rebbe, the second Alter Rebbe's son. He was once visiting in a different town, and he used to travel. That's one of the things is from time to time. He would come to his Hasidim, and he would spend a few days, and he would meet people. People would come into what's called Yichidus, the private audience. And one day, a lot of Hasidim were still online, and the Mittler Rebbe stopped taking in more visitors, more Hasidim, and he was fasting, and he was praying very hard, and it was a mystery. And later on he explained what happened. After about a day and a half he returned. He said that when people come to me and ask me questions in Yechidus, they tell me about their challenges in serving Hashem, so how could I connect to them? How could I help them out? I have to have a certain understanding of the problem. Think of a tzaddik. especially like the Rebbe was was his life was literally, when he was passing away, he was very, very weak. He was like almost unconscious. But when the doctors allowed him to say Hasidus, suddenly he became alive. He became full of energy. The color came back to his face. That's how he lived. Literally, it was Tzemach Tzedek. His son-in-law said that my father-in-law, if he would cut his finger, that blood would come out with Hasidus. So take such a person. How is he? Someone tells her, I have an issue with this and that, and looking at these things I shouldn't be looking at. How does the tzaddik relate to a person's, to regular people's challenges? They don't even know what these things are. So Mittler Rebbe says that's yichidus is very draining. The Rebbe Marash, the fourth Rebbe, when he would take yichidus, he was in a room, it wasn't hot, but he would have to change his undershirt every now and then, every hour or so. Because he explained, I have to actually, in order for me to help, yichidus means oneness, unity. The soul of the chassid and the soul of the Rebbe unite. The Rebbe helps the chassid out of directs him how to get out of his how to get out of his problems, his spiritual problems, his physical also. So the Rebbe has to find a certain connection point, that he could understand that he could give an equivalent. Okay, this person sinned, something very coarse, but the tzaddik has to find something equivalent, in a very thin and very minute way, and by the tzaddik fixing it within himself, he could also give that chassid advice how to fix the more coarse version of the same problem. So I believe that in this case, the story was that the person told him about something wrong that he did in the area of tznius, of forbidden relationship or something like that. So he says, I heard this, I couldn't find any equivalent in myself, and I have to help this chassid, but I can't. So we get back to Rabbi Marsh would explain why is he sweating so much. Is every person that comes in, I have to get dressed and get into his situation, and the next guy have to climb out of that and go back. The Yichidus was a very draining experience for the Rebbe, probably even more than the Chassid. So the Mittler Rebbe says, I couldn't find anything within myself that could even in a very far-fetched way have any relationship with the sin, and I have to give this person a tikkun. I have to help. So, and finally, I discovered that what happens is when I teach Hasidus and I'm not careful who I'm teaching it to, and I sometimes give a person, teach someone not something which is not exactly catered for his needs. That is an equivalent of a forbidden relationship that the person has power that God gave him, and instead of giving it to his wife, he gives it to other people or to klippas or whatever it is. So that's when he found the equivalent, and he was able to correct that within himself. He was able to answer the chassid and then continue to help to take more yichidus, to take more chassidim. So that's how the tzaddik elevates sometimes. But this is the tzaddik's business. The tzaddik is from someone who's very high, and he could go down and lift up, take the negativity of his chassidim, of those that are kushar, those that are connected to him, and he could refine them. So that's why sometimes there's a story of the Alter Rebbe he had this different approach than most of his colleagues, which are all great tzaddikim. And once there was a chassid which he saw a chassid of a different Rebbe, Reb Chaikel of Amdura, a great tzaddik, praying with such great excitement. He was so jealous, and he complained. He says, "Look, he's I'm connected to the Rebbe. The Rebbe is teaching me, but look how far he got by being connected. Look how far he got." So the Alter Rebbe said, "It's not him praying. It's Reb Chaikel is praying through him. It's not his own accomplishment. He gives himself over to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe lifts him up. But it's not his own work. And my approach is, you have to bring yourself up. Yeah, I'm not doing any work for you. But anyway, that's a bit of a side point, but a very important concept. But in any case, the Alter Rebbe says, don't be a fool. And try and say, because I'm learning, so when I'm doing business and I have bad thoughts, then it's a chance to reject them. When I'm praying and studying and then I have the bad thoughts, it's a chance to elevate them. Because that is true for tzaddikim. Someone who is above it, someone who is himself higher than it, he could elevate the bad thoughts. But the bad thoughts are not coming from Mars, from left field. It's coming from within yourself. Which means that you're still stuck in jail. So how are you expecting to elevate it? So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to reject it. That brings us back to our question.
Why reject it? It's gone to it's over.
No, reject means not just ignore. Just keep going. Push the thought away and stay focused on what you're doing. And
Don't try to elevate it because you'll get stuck.
yeah, you can elevate it.
You can't.
You don't have the power. Your tzaddik, your Rebbe will elevate it for you. You just have to reject the thought, put two hands, and just
Put it out of your head. Out
yeah,
of your mind.
get back into what you're doing, into your praying or your study. But now that we realize that this is not an option, that we have to elevate the thought, so we actually feel that we have a certain right to be depressed over it. So you're saying, what are you telling me? You're telling me that because I can't elevate the thought, because it's coming from within myself, so that's true. What the Eitzah, I have a good reason to be depressed. I'm full of no good. If I was better than what I am, then I could elevate the bad thought, but I can't elevate it. That means, so that strengthens the Eitzah's point. Says the Alter Rebbe, no. It's true that you have a lot of no good in you, but it's still not a reason to make you depressed. You know what?
Not a reason to give up.
To make you depressed.
Right.
And giving up is the Eitzah's next trick. First he wants to make you sad. That's how he gets you to give up. So he says, why are the thoughts coming to you now? I'm trying to do what's right. Why is Hashem making it hard for me to do what's right? Yeah?
Specifically now.
Especially now that I'm, one thing that I'm involved in business. So business and a worse thing, this is not Kedusha, but here I'm doing what's right. I'm trying my hardest. Says the Alter Rebbe, no, you should actually rejoice. You know why? Because the Eitzah Hara sees, the negative side sees that you're growing in your spirituality, you're accomplishing, and the nature of people that are in a struggle, any competition in business, and when you see someone, your competitor successful, that makes you want to get even more overcome him. That's what fuels the competition. Each side is fueled by the success of the other side. That's what makes the other side try to overpower. That's a good game. What's the Eitzah Hara sensing? Why is he throwing you all these bad thoughts? And sometimes he'll throw you the worst thoughts when you pray. Things that you didn't think about for years. He'll bring up scenes that you haven't thought about for a long time, specifically when you're praying. Because Eitzah has it all in his bag, and he sees that you're accomplishing, you're gaining ground, and you're getting closer to Hashem. So he uses everything he has at his disposal, and he'll throw the worst bad thoughts that you don't know where they're coming from. He'll throw them at you. Something that when you were a teenager 50 years ago, you once did or saw or thought about, and it'll come back to you. Why is it coming back to you now? It's not a sign that you're getting worse, it's a sign that you're getting better. That's why the Eitzah is using it, so you should be happy. That's a sign, that you're winning, and that's why he's using everything he has. He feels that he has nothing to lose. And so you just have to hold your ground and just reject it and keep going. But you could use it as an indicator that you're doing well. That's why the Eitzah is trying to stop you so strongly. And not like the mistakes, is the Alter Rebbe, this is, which actually we discussed this, I think, in 2 lessons ago, which was actually, that's where it really belongs. Says not. It's what people think is that if I was really praying, then the Eitzar wouldn't come to me. The fact that the Eitzar could come to me means that I'm not praying properly. I'm not doing fine. Says out there, but that would be true if there was one soul, and this one soul is praying, and the same soul that's praying is also having the thoughts. That means that you have one soul, and this soul is a mixture of good and evil. And if I was really purely good, I would have just good. The fact that I have evil, I have thoughts, means that my one soul is still full of evil. Says the Alter Rebbe, that would be true if you had one soul, but we learned already that you have two souls. And your godly soul is in a struggle with the animal soul. And since it sees the godly soul gaining ground, it's trying to stop it. And that's that teaching that we mentioned, I'll say it in short, I don't know if everyone was here. It's connected to this. In this week's Parsha, Mishkacha brought this, that Rivka says that the children were jumping around when she became pregnant. And Chazal said that when she would pass a yeshiva, the yeshiva of Shem and Aver, she would feel kicking, she would feel that the child wants to go out. And then she would pass a place of tuma, of impurity, of klipa, maybe would want to go out. So she was bewildered. She said, why am I going through this? So, it doesn't mean that she was just the pain of the pregnancy. Also, what doesn't say anywhere that her pain was taken away. When Shem or Aver told her that it's twins, that calmed her down. What did she understand now? She said before, she thought it was one child. So he also wants to learn Torah, and he also wants to do Avodah Zarah. He wants good and bad. She says, well, what do I need such a child for? That's a whole mix-up of good and evil. He doesn't have any backbone. When the prophet told her that you have two children, it's two different children. One is Yaakov, he's a tzaddik. One is Esav, he's a rasha. So she felt better. So so the Berditchever, the Holy Berditchever says this is the two souls. The person thinks, says, I'm praying, and I also, while I'm praying, I feel I'm thinking of the worst things. That's a sign that something's wrong with me. He says, no, nothing's wrong with you. The same thing we tell Rivka. You have two souls. And the reason why when you're praying, suddenly all these bad thoughts come is because the animal soul senses that you're about to win. So he's putting all he's got. So it's just a reason you're the one. He's dancing by your flute. What he said? Is that expression in English also? Dancing to your tune.
Yeah, to your own flute. Yeah.
So he's dancing to your tune. If the Yitzhar is following you around when you're praying, that means that he's scared that he's going to lose. That's why he's running after you. Whenever you pray and study, that's when he starts to bother you. So there's no reason to be depressed. And the Alter Rebbe tells us you should think about it. Try to picture this scene, what's happening when you're praying, and suddenly you have these thoughts that come to your mind. So instead of thinking of it that it's me who's having good desires and evil desires in a whole mix-up, a whole mishmash, no, think about it. Try to think that the negative thoughts of nefesh habahamis is. Try to picture to yourself a guy who sees you praying and he's trying to bother you. He sees you praying and he comes to you and starts nudging you. It's not that he's asking you a question, you could let him go. He just wants to bother you. In that case, when you feel depressed about your spiritual situation, what would you think? So I'm trying to pray, and this Ivan, this Johnny is bothering me. So what do you do when Johnny bothers you to pray? You ignore him. Either you kick him out or you ignore him. If you can kick him out, then wonderful. If not, you just keep going and you ignore and you hope that he'll give up. So think in the same way that I have my godly soul is davening and it's doing well, it's getting close to Hashem. And this guy that happens to be not next to me in a different body, happens to live in the same body as me, is trying to disturb me. So what's the eitzah, what's the solution? Ignore him. Either get rid of him or ignore him. There's Hasidim, the Chabad davening, Hasidim would pray for many long hours. The Polish Hasidim would daven quicker. There was also, even in Chabad, there's the minyan that davened shorter, but davened regular, average speech, but the Mittler Rebbe, he made a rule that any shul that doesn't have a second room where the people that want to daven longer could daven longer, you're not allowed to daven in such a shul.
What if there's two sections for a shorter and a longer
No,
prayer?
there's the shul, the main shul, that the minyan is davening. But he said every shul, every Hasidic shul has to have a room for people who want to pray longer. It was a big deal to pray. It's called praying by Riches, praying long. It still is. There's people that do it. Usually Shabbos. Most people that do it, you go to 770. You can see it. Yeah.
You're saying you shouldn't? It's asur to have a place like that?
No,
Oh.
should.
Oh.
He said it says he made a rule that you have to give respect for those that want to pray longer. So the other Hasidim, they didn't have such a concept. They had pray with kavanah, but pray average speed. So they had once a disagreement. So the two Hasidim were arguing which is the better way. So the Polish Chassid tells the Chabad Chassid, says, look what's that. Look, imagine you have a wagon. You're traveling through a Goyish village, and the Goyim are throwing rocks at you. You're traveling in Israel, and you're passing by. You're passing an Arab village, and the Arabs are throwing rocks. What do you do? Huh?
You keep going. You
Keep going. You speed up. It says the Yitzhar is trying to mess up your davening, so just daven quickly, finish, and go on. Don't let him jump. So the Chassid told him, that's true, but that's if the guy is throwing rocks from outside. But if the guy already jumped onto your wagon, then you don't have no choice. You can't just
speed up.
Speed up. It's not gonna help. He's coming with you. You have to stop the wagon, pick him up, throw him off. So that's why it takes us much longer to daven. We have to the guy that's disturbing our prayer. He's not outside. He's inside. You should view him as if he's outside, in the sense that don't let his disturbance tell you anything about yourself, because you should view the disturbance as an external disturbance, but the external disturbance happens to be in the same skin, the same body, but it's not. It doesn't say anything about your essence. Your essence is pure. Your godly soul is pure. It's holy, and the reason why the guy is disturbing is because he's jealous and because he wants to win. And it sees that you're winning, but it's not a reason to be depressed. Yeah, and on the contrary, if you start trying to deal with it, and trying to argue and trying to debate, so there's a verse of King Shlomo. It says, "Altan ksil ki yivalta." Do not answer a fool to his foolishness, lest you become like him. Or another saying of Chazal, "Misabek imenuva misnavel." You wrestle with someone dirty, you're going to become dirty. It's true, you're trying to win the dirty guy and you're trying to answer the fool. But in this case, if you have no chance to win him, just ignore him, because it's just going to pull you lower. Even if you have the greatest intentions and you're being very idealistic, you want to win, you want to elevate, you want to overcome, you have to know what you could do. You have to know what you're capable of. And in your situation, what you're capable of is ignoring him. And if a person's trying this and it doesn't help, the thought keeps coming back, so the Alter Rebbe says, then ask Hashem for help. Pray to Hashem. Say a capital Tehillim for yourself. Ask Hashem. Say, Hashem, the part of you that's in me wants to get close to you, and this Rosh, this guy, is in my way. Please help me. If you feel that you can't ignore it, but don't make the mistake of being lured into struggling with the Yitzhar and trying to argue and convince him. He's not looking to be convinced. He's looking to disturb. It's a waste of time. Ignore, and if it doesn't help, then ask Hashem to help you ignore. But what's for sure is don't be depressed. It's all a sign of victory. The fact that Yitzhar is bothering you, it means because he sees that you're not dancing to his tune, and he's trying to bother you. So it's a sign. It's just a sign that you're doing well, and it's a reason to rejoice and to be happy. So that's the end of chapter 28. In chapter 29,
it says if he answers one question, he will promptly be asked another. So you can't win.
That's right. You can't debate. It's like debating. It's like the presidential debates over here, in America lately. There's no sense over there. There's no It's just attacking one another. It's not. The point is not to debate kind of issues. It's just
No positive.
it's just
coming
to
to
punch
a-
each other. It's a boxing match. Just
Wow.
with words. So that's the 3 chapters which talk about the importance of being simcha, being rejoicing. We'll talk more about simcha later on in chapter 33 and 34. And the next few chapters, which is actually 28 and 29, 30, 31, 32, discuss a few more areas in this direction, which is about apathy. It's not so much depression, different things that the Beinoni deals with, which leads into other discussions. That will be Mirta Hashem. We continue next week, same time, same place. Hopefully, the same place in Yerushalayim. Oh, that's true. Okay, you know what? You're right. We might do it a different day then.
What?
Next week.
Rabbi's daughter is getting married next Monday. I could do it at the hall.
Who's getting that?
My sister. You have a meeting?
So
I'm meeting down.
next week it won't be
It
Monday.
won't be on Monday.
Maybe some other day.
Maybe some other day.
Where's the wedding?
Everyone's invited to the wedding. Wedding is going to be in the chuppah will be Kawaspan chuppah in Crown Heights in 770, and the dinner, the part, whatever you call it, will be at Kol Yaakov, McDonald and O. What time is it? 8 o'clock? It's called cars. 7:30. Everyone, please come. I guess we'll
Alright.
figure out the class.
You don't have many?
How many do we have?